The Last Flamekeeper, Part 3. Chapter 19, The Oathbound. The valley trembled before the sound reached it. Kaelen paused mid-sentence, his hand still tracing glyphs into the training circle at the Ember Chain Sanctuary. All around him, new recruits halted, some drawing blades, others instinctively reaching for their Ember Sigil pendants. The ground pulsed again. Once, twice. Then came the horn. A deep, single-tone call. Not made by man. Ashra burst through the archway, her voice tight. South wall. Riders approaching. Kaelen moved quickly, cresting the lookout ridge above the sanctuary. He raised the spyglass Ashra handed him, and what he saw made his stomach knot. They're not riders. The figures below galloped across the ash fields on twisted beasts, part bone, part fire. Their armor bore no sigils. Their faces were covered in metal helms with no eye slits. And in their hands, flame-carved pacts, burning scrolls bound in black iron. Ashra swore under her breath. Oathbound. Long ago, the Empire created the Oathbound as a last resort. Warriors fused to fire not through memory, but contract. They had no names, no pasts, no fear. Their only purpose: kill the bearers, seal the breath, obey the throne. They were thought to have been entombed beneath the obsidian sands. They were supposed to stay there forever. We can't outrun them, Kaelen said. And if we don't stand now, they'll follow us to every ember that lights. Ashra nodded, pulling her blade. Then we hold the valley. Kaelen turned to the flamebearers. They were a scattered band, warriors, monks, scribes, a child who still hadn't drawn her ember yet. But they had fire in their eyes, and faith in their flame. Today, you fight not for me, he shouted, but for the memory they tried to erase, for the dragons they silenced, for the names they burned, and for the girl still breaking free beneath the stone. The ember in his chest lit. The Ashbound sigil burned bright across his back. We hold, and we burn. The first wave struck at dusk. The Oathbound rode in silence. No battle cry, no command, only the burning scrolls chained to their armor glowing with old pact fire. Kaelen's flame met the first of them head-on, erupting into a whip of living memory. The impact shattered the rider's armor, but the warrior didn't fall. They don't feel pain, Ashra shouted. Then we'll make them remember it. Kaelen unleashed his fire not as a weapon, but as a story. He flooded the field with visions, dragons soaring through flame-colored skies, flamekeepers writing runes in the air with breath, children learning to whisper to candles. The Oathbound reeled. Some stopped, some screamed, but others burned hotter. Their contracts twisted in response, absorbing Kaelen's fire and turning it against him. One of them, a massive Oathbound captain with a shattered helm and a burning gauntlet, broke through the line and reached Kaelen directly. The blow knocked him to the stone, his breath stolen. The captain raised a chain blade and stopped, just for a second. Kaelen's ember pulsed, and the fire inside the captain flickered. Kaelen grabbed the burning scroll chained to his attacker's chest. He pulled. The fire around them howled, and the pact unraveled. The Oathbound warrior screamed, in a human voice, and collapsed, the flame leaving his eyes. Kaelen stared down at the scroll. The name burned into it. Terran. Flamekeeper. Betrayed. They weren't just built, Kaelen whispered. They were turned. Ashra's eyes widened. The Empire used old Flamekeepers, twisted them, bound them with pacts. Then we don't just fight them, Kaelen said. We free them. The battle shifted. Kaelen and the strongest bearers focused on disrupting scrolls, breaking pacts. One by one, Oathbound warriors fell, not dead, but released, their bodies scorched but breathing. By night's end, 30 Oathbound lay still. 5 had joined the Ashbound ranks. The rest had vanished into smoke. Ashra helped Kaelen to his feet, his arm bleeding, his fire dimmed. This was only the first wave, she said. They'll send worse. Kaelen looked toward the east, where the mountains framed the distant horizon. Then we find the rest of the chain. We bring her out, and we burn the throne that made them. Far in the imperial city, the Empress knelt at her scrying mirror. She saw Kaelen. She saw Veyra. She saw the sigil in the sky. And she whispered a single word. War. Chapter 20. The Crown of Ash. The mountains of Wyrmthrone were known only in myth now. An endless, jagged range spoken of in broken lullabies and forbidden temple chants. No maps led to them. No merchants passed through. Even the birds flew wide around its peaks. It was said that the last true Flamekeeper citadel had been sealed beneath its highest ridge, sunk into the volcanic stone, and left to vanish beneath the cold sky. But Kaelen felt the pull. Each step eastward made the ember in his chest tighten, pulse, pull. Not with pain, with recognition. Ashra rode beside him in silence, her brow furrowed against the freezing wind. "If the stories are true," she said, "then we're not just walking into a vault." "No," Kaelen murmured. "We're walking into a test." They reached the base of the peak by dusk, where the sky was a sheet of gold bleeding into silver and ash. There, hidden between two natural stone arches, they found the entrance. A flat slab of obsidian carved with only one symbol. But unlike the others, this one bled. Not with blood, with fire. A slow trickle of ember light ran from the carving's edge, winding down into the stone like a tear from something that had once been alive. Kaelen stepped forward, placed his palm against it, and whispered, "Ashbound." The ground shook. The stone split in a spiral, and the mountain opened its mouth. They descended into darkness. But it was not cold, not dead. Warmth rose to greet them. Old warmth. Sacred warmth. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of embedded flame twisting through them. Glyphs moved across the stone, not carved, but alive, whispering in draconic tongues. As they passed each archway, the flame within Kaelen grew clearer. Not louder, clearer, like it had stopped whispering and started remembering itself. At the heart of the citadel, they found the Ash Crown Room. Circular, vaulted, filled with silent stone statues, each a Flamekeeper of old, arms crossed, brands glowing faintly in their chests. The floor was etched with an enormous spiral sigil that seemed to shift as they moved. And in the center, suspended above a brazier of ever-burning silver flame, floated the crown of ash. It wasn't made of gold. It wasn't even solid. It was flame, woven into shape, dark as soot, flickering with violet and ember light, rimmed with the shadow of wings. Ashra let out a slow breath. "That's no crown. It's a promise," Kaelen said softly. As he stepped into the center, the flame below flared upward. Voices rose. 12 of them. Low. Unmistakable. The Flamekeepers who had sealed the citadel. "Kaelen, son of no line, bearer of a broken breath. Do you come to wear what you do not understand?" Kaelen stood tall. "I don't come to rule. I come to break the throne." Silence. Then wear what was never meant to be worn. Let it burn the lie from your mind. Let it crown you with memory. The flames surged. The crown of ash descended toward him, spinning slowly, its heat immense, but not scalding. It stopped just above his brow, hovering, testing. Kaelen closed his eyes and let it fall. It didn't land. It entered. The crown dissolved into his skin, his bones, his flame. Every scar pulsed. Every breath burned. Every memory that wasn't his, dragons, keepers, cities swallowed by fire, rushed through him like wind through a shattered gate. He dropped to his knees, screamed, not in pain, but in clarity. When he rose again, the Ashbound sigil had changed. No longer just a broken ring with a crown. Now it burned with wings. Ashra stepped back, eyes wide. What did it show you? Kaelen looked up. The throne was never the seat of flame. Then what was it? A siphon. The Empire didn't conquer dragons. They channeled them, locked their breath into a throne to power the Empire forever. He turned to her, fire bleeding from his hands. "If I sit on it, I become the cage." "So what now?" she asked. Kaelen stared toward the west. "Now we break it." Far across the realm, the Wyrmthrone trembled. Beneath it, the imprisoned heart flame of Sirik flared against its chains. And in the Empress's chamber, the mirrors cracked. Every single one. Chapter 21, The Burning Pact. The sky above Yrenval crackled as Kaelen emerged from the citadel, the crown of ash still burning faintly around his brow. It didn't rest on his head. It hovered there, a flickering halo of flame that shifted between shapes, a spiral, a fong, a pair of wings. Ashra followed behind, her blade drawn, not in fear, but in reverence. "You're different," she said. "No," Kaelen answered, his voice deeper, threaded with echo. "I'm remembering more than I should." He turned to face the valley below and whispered, "We light the second beacon." Across the mountains, hidden in a crater of obsidian glass, the second ancient sky beacon flared to life within the hour. Its fire curled into the sky, this time not violet, but gold. Gold, with a serpent's spiral etched in the flame. The signal hadn't been seen since the last breath of Sirik, the first Wyrm. It meant one thing. The heart flame must be released. Word spread faster than any ember. Rebellion turned to revolution. Entire villages sealed their roads to imperial tax riders. Priests were ousted from temples. Old Flamekeeper sigils were painted on rooftops, cliffsides, and broken statues. And in the ember-chained sanctuary, Kaelen gathered those ready to burn. They came from the hollow coast, from the windless deserts, from ruins so old they no longer had names. He stood before them, flanked by Ashra, the ember chain, and 3 newly awakened oathbound, now freed from their pacts. The Wyrmthrone draws from the sealed flame of Sirik, Kaelen told them. It doesn't govern. It feeds. And unless we break its tether, the Empire will live forever, not through rule, but through consumption. A silence followed. Then a voice rose from the crowd. A boy, barely 15, eyes burning with hope. And how do we break it? Kaelen closed his eyes. We descend into the forge crypt. A stir passed through the crowd. Even Ashra looked uneasy. That place was buried for a reason. It's where Sirika's breath was sealed, Kaelen said. The last true fire. And the only flame strong enough to shatter the throne. Later that night, Kaelen sat alone beneath the stars. The heart flame stirred in his mind, no longer whispering. Now it waited. And from across the realm, a familiar voice broke through his thoughts. You're going to let her out. Kaelen turned inward, into the ember that bound him to her. Veyra. She stood inside the flame like a memory made flesh, eyes burning bright, her silhouette flickering in sync with his heartbeat. The heart flame nearly destroyed the world. It was bound, twisted, made into a throne. It is a throne. You know that. Kaelen didn't speak. If you break the seal, Sirika's soul will flood your body. You won't wield her. You'll become her. Kaelen looked up at the sky, where stars flickered in shapes that seemed suddenly too familiar. Then I won't do it alone. The flame shimmered. Veyra's image softened. We join. Kaelen nodded. Together. 2 halves. 1 breath. Far below the Wyrmthrone, the Empress stood in the depths of the Boneheart Vault, where the tether to the first Wyrm pulsed in chains of molten gold. She ran her hand along the heart flame's prison. He's coming. A voice behind her hissed. Shall I prepare the throne for him? No, she said. Her eyes narrowed. Burn it into him. Let the flame decide if it wants a body or a battlefield. Chapter 22. The Forge Crypt. The air grew heavier as they rode south, toward the mountains where the first empire was born. There were no roads here, just scars in the stone, scorched riverbeds, burned forest stumps, ruined watchtowers blackened from the inside out. Everything near the Forge Crypt had once breathed fire. Now it only remembered what it had lost. Kaelen rode at the head of the procession, flanked by Ashra, the youngest Emberbearer girl, and a pair of flame-freed, oathbound warriors. Behind them, more than 40 flamebearers marched, quiet, prepared, terrified. The crown of ash pulsed around Kaelen's head, not in pain, but in rhythm. The closer they came, the more the crown seemed to burn in patterns, matching the pulse beneath the ground. We're near, Kaelen said. She knows. The Forge Crypt's entrance lay at the base of a blackened canyon, sealed behind an iron gate fused to the bones of 2 dragons. Their skulls crowned the archway like twin gods, eyes hollow, jaws eternally open as if still screaming. Ashra ran her fingers across the glyphs carved into the gate. These dragons weren't slain. They were bound to guard. Will they stop us? Kaelen asked. No, she whispered. They're waiting too. Kaelen stepped forward. He placed a single hand against the gate and whispered a single word. Ashbound. The glyphs flared. The gate melted. Not exploded. Not cracked. Melted, as if it had only been ice, and his flame the first real heat in centuries. They descended. The Forge Crypt's halls were massive, carved by dragon fire and sealed by magic lost to time. Lava veins pulsed behind glass-like rock, illuminating their descent in dim orange light. The heat was suffocating. But no one turned back, because now they all heard it. The breath. Not a voice. Not a wind. A presence deep beneath the stone. Sleeping. Dreaming. Remembering. They passed through what remained of the first flame forges, an ancient armory where swords had once been dipped in living breath. The air still smelled of melted gold and ashbone. Kaelen paused beside a shattered anvil, reaching out to brush it. It hummed. "Even this remembers her," he whispered. Ashra joined him. She was the first dragon who refused to burn the world. So they sealed her, and used her breath to build the one that would. Finally, they reached it. A circular chamber 100 paces wide. Black stone walls rose to a domed ceiling, etched with runes so old they had no translation. The floor was cut with 7 deep rings, forming a spiral that led to the center, where a crystal heart floated in place, suspended over a pit of sleeping fire. It pulsed slowly, like a massive, dying heartbeat. Sirika's heart flame. Kaelen stepped to the edge. The crown of ash burned high now, blazing bright enough to illuminate the chamber in silver violet. Ashra called to him. "Kaelen, be careful. If you touch that flame, I know. It might take you, or I might set it free." He took a breath, stepped into the spiral. As he walked, the rings beneath his feet lit with ancient flame, each one in a different color. Red, gold, violet, silver, green, black, white. When he reached the 7th ring, the heart flame opened its eye. A massive, glowing slit of molten fire appeared in the crystal center. "Who speaks my name?" the voice whispered. Kaelen didn't flinch. "I am Kaelen, Flamekeeper of the Ashbound, crowned in memory, born in silence. I've come to break the throne they built from your breath." The heart flame pulsed. "And what will you become without a throne to hold you?" A blast of wind and heat knocked him to his knees. He fell into fire. Not outside. Inside. He stood in a world of memories not his own. Dragons coiling through skyfire. Humans kneeling in ash, not out of worship, but agreement. The day of the pact. The betrayal. The chains. The throne. He saw Sirik fall. Not in fury. In sorrow. He stood before her, massive, elegant, dying, her wings crumbling like burned paper. "Why didn't you burn them?" Kaelen asked. "Because they were children," she replied. "And I loved them. Even when they feared me. Even when they bled me. They turned you into a weapon. Only because I refused to be their god." Back in the chamber, Kaelen opened his eyes. He stood now directly beneath the heart flame. It trembled above him. "I won't be your prison," he said. "And I won't be your heir. I will be your keeper, and your voice, and your witness." The flame descended. It passed through him like a storm. And then, it bowed. Not to his power, to his promise. The crystal shattered. The flame flared skyward in a spiral of silver and fire. And in Kaelen's chest, the ember became a star. "Far away," Veyra gasped. The fire around her changed direction. And across the empire, every throne-lit corridor flickered. The Wyrmthrone cracked. The Empress fell to her knees. And something in the heavens opened its eye. Chapter 23. When Dragons Breathe Again. The flame didn't roar. It didn't explode. It sang. A single, resonant note rolled through the chamber as the heart flame of Sirik unraveled from its prison, no longer a captive glow, but a spiraling storm of fire and memory that wrapped itself around Kaelen like a second spine. His eyes shimmered. The ashbound sigil burned brighter, its edges sharp with wings, its center open like an eye. Behind him, the chamber shook. Stone cracked. Air burned cold. And somewhere in the mountains above, something answered. Ashra shielded her eyes as the light flooded the chamber. The other bearers dropped to their knees, some gasping, others weeping. "What is it?" one of the young Flamekeepers whispered. "It's not just fire anymore," Ashra murmured. "It's invitation." Outside the forge crypt, the sky changed. Clouds turned silver-edged. The wind twisted upward. And from distant cliffs, where long dead bones had lain untouched for centuries, a shape began to rise. Not large, but unmistakable. A drake, its body cracked with old burned scars, wings stitched with age, opened its eyes. For the first time in 140 years, a dragon breathed. Across the world, the same happened again and again. In the southern dunes, a serpent of flame coiled from beneath glass sands, hissing with ancestral breath. In the icebound north, a crystal Wyrm burst through frozen stone, trailing steam and firelight. In the jungles of the sunken archipelago, a wingless wormling, no larger than a horse, climbed from a molten pool and blinked into the rising sun. All of them stirred with the same whisper. Ashbound. Kaelen stumbled to his feet. The fire no longer surrounded him. It lived in him. But it didn't burn. It flowed. He turned to the others. We are not the last. The dragons are returning. Ashra approached slowly. Do you feel her? Kaelen nodded. She's close. The flame between us is calling her to me. Then what are we waiting for? For her to answer. Far beneath the capital, Veyra ran. Her hair trailed like ember thread, her feet bare, eyes glowing like a storm held captive too long. The ash-marked fell behind her in droves, unable to match her speed or flame. But she wasn't running from them. She was running toward him. Every corridor pulsed. Every wall whispered. The ember inside her burned in harmony with Kaelen's, no longer twin flames, but two halves of the same memory. And now, that memory had found breath again. Above her, the Wyrmthrone spire shook. The stained glass depictions of Empire glory cracked. The molten core beneath the palace trembled. And the Empress screamed as the fire in her veins rebelled. They are joining, she spat. Then we drown them in ash. She summoned her final army. Not living. Not dead. Ashbourne. Back in the forge crypt, Kaelen took his first full breath since the heart flame's release. It tasted of starlight. Of memory. Of wings. He turned to his gathered flame-bearers. We march at sunrise. Not to conquer. To wake. To bring breath to what was buried. The earth trembled. And from the cliffs above, a roar. One of the awakened drakes, a youngling, bone-thin and furious, swooped low over the forge crypt and cried into the sky. Kaelen looked up, eyes wide. The beast's breath curled violet and gold. And it spoke, not in words, but in flame. Flame-bearer, you are heard. Ashra whispered beside him. The dragons don't just live. They remember. In the deepest flame, Veyra stood at the edge of the final gate. Her hand pressed to the stone. And in her palm, his fire. Kaelen, she breathed. I'm here. Chapter 24. The Reunion of Fire. The gate between them was not made of stone. It was made of history. Kaelen stood just beyond the cracked edge of the Breathspire path, a long-forgotten corridor carved into the volcanic veins beneath the old capital. Its air shimmered. Its walls glowed faintly with worm-glass veins that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The moment he entered, the ember in his chest surged. She was here. Veyra stood on the other side of the final archway, one hand pressed to the dragon-steel door that had once been her prison. Her flame was no longer restless. It was focused. Her fire remembered his. He's here, she whispered, eyes closed. I don't even need to see him. I am him. The door shuttered between them. The chamber around Kaelen groaned, flooded with wind and rising heat. From the forge path behind him, Ashra held her ground, her eyes shimmering with awe. This is it, she whispered. The flame joins itself again. Not joins, said one of the freed, oath-bound behind her. Recognizes. Kaelen pressed his palm to the seal. Veyra did the same. And the steel turned to fire. Not an explosion. Not a flash. A bloom, slow and beautiful, like a flower igniting into full color. The flame opened the gate, and they saw each other for the first time. The world stopped. She stood barefoot in her ash-marked robes, eyes like molten glass, a crown of untamed fire floating above her head like a halo of memory. He stood wreathed in the crown of ash, breathing like the world had finally given him back his other half. Neither of them smiled. Not yet, because something ancient held the moment still. The ember, the breath, the flame that had once burned as one. They stepped forward. No words. Their hands met, and the ember between them ignited. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a vow. It was a recognition. A pulse that spread through the forge crypt, through the mountains, through the sky. Above them, the clouds broke apart, not with lightning, but with light. Dozens of fire lines cut across the heavens. Drakes, wormlings, ghost beasts of the old flame-born species. All awakening, all responding to the signal. The flame was whole again. Ashra stumbled as the air thickened. Not with heat, with meaning. Every ember-bearer across the sanctuary dropped to their knees as the wave passed through them. Some wept. Some screamed. Some simply glowed. "What is this?" someone whispered. "The breath," Ashra said. Unbound. Inside the chamber, Kaelen and Veyra held each other's hands. Now, the fire didn't pulse in rhythm. It sang. Spiraling around them, it took shape, a double helix of gold and violet, silver at the edges, memory in the core. From the spiral, a voice rose. "Two keepers. Two witnesses. One fire. What will you burn?" Kaelen answered. "The throne." Veyra echoed. The silence. The spiral tightened, and then collapsed into their joined hands. It entered them, changed them, completed them. The Ashbound sigil appeared again, but it no longer spun above Kaelen's head. It now burned behind both of them. Together. Whole. Alive. Far away, the Empress collapsed as the Wyrmthrone cracked at its base. The siphon that once drew from Sirika's flame now pulsed backward. The throne was no longer consuming. It was being consumed. "They've joined," the Empress whispered, blood in her teeth. "They've remembered." She turned to her final servant. "Then we burn the world before they rewrite it." Back in the chamber, Kaelen looked to Veyra. "You ready?" She smiled. "Fierce. Tired. Glorious. Let's light the way home." Chapter 25. The Flame That Destroys the Throne. They marched at dawn. Not as rebels. Not as warriors. But as witnesses. Kaelen and Veyra walked side by side at the head of the Ashbound host. Behind them, dozens of flame-bearers, freed oathbound, awakened monks, ember children, and emissaries of the reawakened drakes. Above them, 7 dragons, now reborn, flew in silent formation. Their wings didn't roar. They sang, low and deep, in tones that made the clouds part. The sky had not seen such a thing in 4 centuries. The wind carried one name. Ashbound. The gates of the imperial capital stood open, not by surrender, by challenge. The Empress waited on the Wyrmthrone spire, flanked by her final creation, the Ashborn host, forged from relic bone, mirror steel, and breathless flame. They had no voices, no eyes, no memory, only obedience. The Wyrmthrone itself bled fire through its cracks. Beneath it, the tether to Sirika's flame had been severed. Now the throne was dying, and it would take the city with it if left untouched. Kaelen reached the steps of the spire with Veyra at his side. The Ashbound forces fanned out behind them. Ashra stood near the front, her cloak torn and blade glowing faintly with oath fire. "We ready?" she asked. Kaelen's flame pulsed. "We were born ready." The Empress appeared at the top of the stairs, crown shattered, a dagger of flame glass clutched in one hand. "You brought dragons to a pyre," she spat. "You will be consumed by the fire you unleashed." Kaelen raised his voice, not with rage, but remembrance. "You built your throne from chains. You wrote your empire in ash. You feared fire because it told the truth." Veyra stepped forward, her flame pulsing in spirals. "We are the fire you silenced. And now we speak." The Ashborn host charged. They moved like a black tide, limbs flashing, weapons shrieking. Kaelen raised his hands. Veyra did the same. Their flames collided midair, spinning outward in a wide arc of silver and violet light. The Ashborn struck the wave and stopped. One by one, their armor began to crack. Not from heat, from truth. Their pacts, written in stolen ember, could not withstand the flame of origin. Kaelen whispered, "Remember what you were." The Ashborn screamed, not in voices, in memory. Some fell, some crumbled, some simply dropped their blades and wept fire. The battlefield shifted, and the Empress descended. She moved like lightning, unnatural, terrible, her body half consumed by the flame she'd stolen for decades. She struck Kaelen, hard. He flew back, the crown of ash flaring to protect him. Veyra met her next. Their flames collided, spiraling violently. "You think you're chosen?" the Empress hissed. "Your shattered echoes clinging to a story." "No," Veyra whispered. "We're the ending of yours." Kaelen rose. He stepped forward again. Together, he and Veyra raised their hands. And the sky flared open. The dragon's dove, 7 of them, wings aflame, trailing the breath of old gods. One by one, they struck the Wyrmthrone. Not with rage, with fire memory. Kaelen ran the last steps. The throne trembled. Cracks split it from crown to base. The flames inside it screamed, unbound. And as he reached the final platform, Kaelen turned to Veyra. Together. She nodded. They joined hands and stepped into the throne. It didn't burn them. It welcomed them. The fire surged and then broke. The Wyrmthrone shattered in a ring of light so vast the city was blinded. Every false flame went dark. Every enslaved ember was freed. Silence. Then, breath. Real breath. A wind filled the capital, not hot, not violent. Clean. The people came from their homes. Some dropped to their knees. Some stared at the ruins of the throne. Some reached for the sky and wept. Kaelen and Veyra stood where the throne had been. Only scorched stone remained. Between them, the Ashbound sigil hovered. Whole. Alive. And behind them, a world with fire again. But not to destroy. To remember. Ashra walked forward, her blade sheathed. What now? Kaelen and Veyra exchanged a glance. Kaelen smiled. We build something that doesn't need a throne. Epilogue. Ash and what follows. They thought the fire had gone to sleep. Buried beneath the crowned deceit. Chained to thrones and faithless stone. A breathless god upon a bone. But fire is not built to kneel. It waits. It learns. And then it feels. A boy of no name found the flame. A girl who burned, but bore no chain. Two hearts that mirrored, split apart, but sparked as one, a twin-born start. He carried ember, soft and raw. She carried memory, sharp as law. Together, they did not ignite. They made the silence burn with light. The throne has fallen. The crown is ash. The wound once sealed now sings and thrashes. And from that hollow, fractured ground, a world is waking. Ashbound. Not gods. Not kings. No chosen reign. Just flame-bearers. Who walk the flame. Somewhere, deep in dragon sleep. A whisper climbs the mountain steep. Flame returns to fire's own will. And those who breathe it, burn it still.
Every story has an ending, but some mysteries live on. If you enjoyed this tale, don't let it fade into the shadows. Smash that like button and subscribe for more thrilling stories that will transport you beyond the veil of the ordinary. Subscribe to our channel and your name will appear at the beginning of our next video, where we will pleasantly thank you for your subscribing. Tap the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Share your thoughts in the comments. What twists did you see coming? And what secrets do you think still remain? Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and let the next story begin.